All right, welcome back to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. And we're going to be doing some more Wheel of Time. Um, this one's going to be pretty heavy spoilery because I don't know how we talk about Chapter 22 Watchers without, because that's, I mean, basically the whole chapter is talking about, you know, prophecy pretty much.
Yeah, not only prophecy, but there's a lot of insight into Moiraine's head and
Mhm.
into some very important future characters as well.
Yeah.
And uh so we're just gonna say perpetual jazz hands on this one.
Mhm.
So if you don't want any spoilers for future books, then go ahead and still hit that like and still hit that share, but don't watch until you've read more of the books. I would say shoot through 12 at least.
Probably. Um, some of the stuff is just going to be to the end of this book,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then there's some other stuff that sets up way down the road, and of course, Adelaus and Vandine, uh, they pop back up like, man, is that like book 5 or 6 or man, it's down the road.
Yeah, it's way down the road.
Yeah, and then they become kind of pivotal supporting cast
Mm-hmm.
when they do show up. And so some of this stuff is setting up them for down the road.
Well, when do the group they end up joining start marching? That's book 10 or above, I think. So,
No, but that's um when they first when they first form that group, and then Nynaeve and Elaine go off on their own again to go
mm-hmm.
have their little adventures. They go with,
Mm.
and that's book 5, I'm pretty sure. If not book 5, then it's book 6.
All right. Now one spoiler. I don't think the it's much of a spoiler because it pretty much says it in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen? It's how it's happened that's a spoiler, so we can avoid that. And that's the things with Land's bond.
Mm-hmm.
Because it says what's going to happen. It's just how it happens that would be the spoiler. So
Yeah.
uh, and that's probably where we should start because not only is it the start of the chapter, but it is
Mm-hmm.
also well, we can go into our complaints about the show because we get a lot of Land from an emotional level here.
Yeah.
This is technically the most emotional Land gets in the books, and it even says this is the most emotion she's seen out of him in forever. So,
Right.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you start since I did read this one thoroughly through instead of just skimming. So, hopefully, we'll be able to go a little bit more in depth.
Well, I feel like that awkward naked butt scene at the in the first episode, they were trying to recreate some of this,
Mm-hmm.
but boy howdy did it not work. Um, but the like you say, that you get a lot of Moraine's head because this is from her perspective. So as we've talked about from what we've seen from the outside, she's a chess player. She's thinking moves ahead, and she's
Mm-hmm.
thinking, I'm going to do this because what I really want to do is over here. So I'm trying to, you know, watch the hand. Don't watch what the other hand is doing, which is, the old illusionist trick.
Mm-hmm.
So she's trying to put Lan off balance. Um,
Well, and the tool she's using, let's keep in mind, this is the equivalent of rape when it comes to Aes Sedai and their warders.
mm,
So it is basically forcing your will upon
yeah.
your warder.
Yeah, and that analogy is used in the books several times down the road
Mm-hmm.
when they talk more in depth about the warders and their bond. Um, so it is curious and interesting that she's going to start off. She wants to get him emotional, or I guess what she's trying to do is see how emotional he will get, which is why she kind of soft plays him with reminiscences
Mm-hmm.
of when they first met. And
But reminiscence that was verboten to talk about.
no, not yet. She's just talking about how they first met.
No, but she mentions that they agreed never to talk about it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Because neither one of them are both of them are pretty stiff-necked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that first encounter they're not going to want to talk about, and yet here she is talking about it, so that then she can kind of drop the hammer on him of uh uh before we left Tarvalon, I made arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you were talking about, of no consultation uh with him. And then when she, or when he asks about it, asks for details, she doubles down on it of, this is what the bond is, this is what it means, uh and you have to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
uh
And this is an example of trade-offs, because the water bond gives them strength, gives them endurance, gives
mhm,
them uh, protection from elements to a certain degree, and quite a bit of benefit as a warrior would see
yeah.
it. But it also has that vulnerability of whoever bonded them can basically compel them to use
Mhm.
mind control. And this is in one way that it's happening.
um and you he he gives hints that it does happen more often, because Moraine talks about how um well, Land mentions that never once has he used that, has she used that on him, and she thanks and says about how she's been really light-handed with him compared to the way other warders are treated.
Mm-hmm.
um
But again, not only is that a testament to Moiraine uh, having kind of an inclination to not do that, but it's a testament to their bond personally together, because he has not given her much reason
mhm.
to use it. Whereas uh, what we find later is these warders are trained, they come from around the world to train in the White Tower, and sisters, as they come up, will pick one of the warders.
Yeah.
There's not always the bond, not the power bond, but the bond emotionally that these two have.
Yeah, because they met and became wrapped up in Moraine's quest, of which she set off when she first left the tower.
Whereas in the
um
tower, you could have a dynamic where this accepted becomes a sister, and that sister's just happens to be the most powerful sister coming out of that basically graduation class,
mhm.
and says, well, I want the best warder, I'm going to take this guy. And that guy may or may not have anything in common with
Right.
that sister, but now he's got, say she's a brown sister, and she's going to be going through dusty old tombs the rest of her life, and he kind of wants to get out in nature or something. Well, now you've got a different dynamic.
Mhm.
It's like arranged marriages almost versus a chosen
Yeah,
marriage.
and you
Moiraine and
have
Land
to,
were a chosen marriage.
yeah. So they were of one mind more or less from the beginning. um I I'm curious if, so where am I? Where is it that she says that? Um,
That being,
so Lan asks if she's foreseeing her
oh yeah, yeah.
death, and she says, I see it, every day around every corner. It does make me wonder if she has some sort of feeling or hint or notion that that she is going to be the one to die first, because he does say that Uh, I had never thought that I might not be the first of us to die. Somehow, even at the worst, it always seemed, and he trails off. Um,
Well, I think at this point, she's just more of the planner. So she's writing the contingency plans.
yeah.
And
You know, my other thought when I read this chapter is if we're seeing a more if we're seeing a softer, more emotional, more human side to Moraine,
mhm.
if this isn't necessarily about her potential death, but that she's making arrangements that even if she doesn't die, she wants him to end up where he's going to end up.
Well, she says so much. She says that much
Right, but
in this chapter where she says
that
when
my
he
role is
asks
just going to be,
the intermediary,
the intermediary.
if she dies first.
Yeah. But to have set it up now already with the intention of who he's going to end up with, it makes me wonder, since she is such a schemer, if because there are a couple of scenes in The Eye of the World where Moraine is wondering if Lan is wholly with her. I think is the phrase she uses a couple of times. Because of his attachment to the Two Rivers people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, her thoughts say as much in this chapter,
Yeah,
where she sees that, but she believes that it's because of his affection for Nynaeve.
right.
Which I think that there's a mixture there. I think he sees exactly what he said with the wolfhound analogy. It has some to do with Nynaeve, but it also has some to do with his knowledge of how men grow into what they need to be. And again, this is why you need the father and the mother. And in the case of Rand at this moment, he's the father and Moiraine's the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And the world is kicking his ass.
Um, oh yeah, there it is. It's on page 324 where she says outright, not a test, Lan. I spoke plainly, not twisting. And I have done as I said. But at Foldara, I began to wonder if you were still wholly with me.
Mm-hmm. And then it goes into her thoughts at the beginning of the next page, or in the beginning of 326, where it says that sharing some of he's starting to share some of Nynaeve's loyalties.
Right. Yeah, because even there, she can tell that he's expecting that he's going to mention Nynaeve, and she's thinking that, but then she comes at him with, "Why did you do as you did with Rand?"
And I think we get
off balance some more.
I think we get an important difference between men and women, because she talks about her jealousy. And her jealousy never actually revolved around the physical act of him being with other women or anything like that. It revolved around the loyalty to her.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference between men and women when it comes to infidelity, really.
And Moiraine especially so, because this was our big criticism about Moiraine in the show, is that you didn't get this single-minded focus that makes her such a strong character in the book. She is very, very driven, and Lan has been her partner in that great work that she's been on for 20 years now.
Well, and it's the downfall of blues in general.
Yep.
In the book is that they tend to miss the forest for the trees. They get focused on these single-minded goals and miss a lot of the world that's around them. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's what makes them vulnerable to not doing their best job, is because sometimes being able to see a pattern around you is what helps you to that goal to begin with.
And that's only going to get worse when you have been dedicated to blues pick a cause, and when you have been dedicated to that cause for Moraine is relatively young. She's been in Aes Sedai for 20 years. I don't know if we ever get an idea of exactly how old she is, but she's around 50, I would guess.
Mhm.
With just the kind of standard, even if
Well,
you're really talented and advanced, it's kind of standard. You're going to spend several years as a novice, several years as an accepted. So she could have been about 30 before she became a full sister.
now it does mention they were really quick to advance, her and
Yeah,
Swan,
yeah,
because they went hand in hand. And then it's been 20 years since she became
yeah.
Aes Sedai.
So
Yeah.
so 5 to 10 years is probably standard. So
Well,
probably
not
more
even
like
20,
5 years
because
for
Rand
her.
Rand is supposed to be like 18 or so.
So a little younger than that. So, but
Yeah,
still, she's
because
about middle aged,
she was
and she's
accepted when
been,
they got the prophecy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was her last day as an
Mm,
accepted,
mhm.
and she has been dedicated to this her entire adult life, and she's now middle aged, even though she doesn't look it, and it's only going to get worse with her with other blues when you consider that Aes Sedai lived for a couple of centuries.
Mhm.
So that's going to make the older blues even more myopic.
We talk about casting a lot. You know who I thought of as Moraine, because they talk about the agelessness
Hmm.
and then the descriptions of her and everything. I always thought of, for those that grew up in the 80s and 90s and your grandma watched soap operas, I always thought of Susan Lucci,
Ha.
because she never seemed to age. She was the same in 1985 as she was in 1995.
Mhm.
As I grew up watching my grandma watch these soap operas, so I always thought Susan Lucci. But yeah, you're talking about someone in their middle age years, but still, maybe she's 20, maybe
Mhm.
she's 40. We don't know, because Botox. And
Um,
you know who would have been good? J Lo.
hmm.
She's short, dark hair, doesn't look her age by even the smidge, and
Yeah.
she's a decent actress. I guess they couldn't afford J Lo though.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, they're spending $1 billion to ruin Lord of the Rings. They could have spent $1 billion to ruin Wheel of Time instead of doing it on the cheap.
Okay, so you get your next thought. I think I have the meme for this episode
Okay.
based
All
on
right.
that.
So, um, that that's gonna kind of simmer there with Lan and Moraine and what's going on there. That's gonna kind of simmer for a while. Um, for a few books even, and then this is where we start to get into the super spoilery territory, because after he leaves, this is when Van Veen comes in. Um, we get a touch more of information about the warders with Jaime out practicing the sword because he's feeling young again.
I don't know. Maybe we'll discuss others, but I think that's the front runner based on our conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, back to James. He's feeling young again because of
Yeah.
Lan, and Lan's not
So he's
young.
Land being here has him remembering he's more than a gardener and a handyman.
Mm-hmm.
Gaiden are so stiff necked. Yeah, and Aes Sedai aren't. Um,
Yeah, I really like this conversation with her and Van Deen, because
yes.
we got so many. I mean, we got so many things we could kind of branch this conversation on, and I kind of made some. I highlighted some passages and notes about Aes Sedai double speak. But you go where you wanted to go, and we can come back to that. That's a pretty easy one to come back to.
Okay. Well, um, the one of the more interesting, and this is going to pop up as the horn kind of pops up and is mentioned throughout, is the first thing she talks about is the horn for obvious reasons, and it's linked to the dragon, and then you find out it's not actually in any of the prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's more the timing of it.
Yes.
It has its own set of prophecies, and the timing seems similar.
Yeah. No, except for the fact that the horn must be found before Tarmogeddon and the dragon reborn is supposed to fight the last battle. There is no link between them at all. And then that's going to it's an interesting little foreshadow to how the book is going to end, how this book is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
In something that is in a way that is somewhat unexpected, with who the horn sounder is and how that all works out.
Mm-hmm.
The bit about Tolman Head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if what Moraine is doing here is that she's still trying to direct things. Because remember when we talked about the meeting with the Amarillan, their plan was to find this child that was born on the slopes of Dragon Mount, bring him back to Tar Valon where he could be safeguarded, taught, guided, and then find a way to reveal him to the nations, to the rulers, and then to the world at large, such that he would be accepted as the true dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And with her studying here, and the fact that the opening of the chapter is nothing is happening as I expect, Moraine muttered. It does make me wonder, how in the world did you think you were going to fulfill the prophecies by keeping him locked up in the tower?
Well, and I think it's actually important to rewind a little bit to the beginning of this book. When Paden Fane gets away, there was the writings on the walls, yes. And that's where Moiraine gets the idea about Tolman Head, because it's nowhere in the actual prophecies, yes. until she looks here, but it's in the scribblings on the wall. We will meet. Here we go, page 92. Mm-hmm. We will meet again on Tolman Head. It is never over, Althor. And that was Paden Fane.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to figure out what the connection is between Tolman Head and what she knows Althor to be, or possibly to be, and if they fit into the prophecies, because she wants the prophecies to happen because she knows that's how he's going to be announced to the world properly.
Right.
Now they want to do it with tower backing or tower manipulation, but she's trying to figure out why this thing came up in the process, which threw the whole plan off, really. Paden Fane escaping and the Horn of Valier being taken away and Rand leaving threw the whole plan off.
Because if not for that, we would assume that they would have tried to get him to go back. Well, no, because they said the plan was to goad, guide, direct, push him into taking the horn down to Ilion, mm-hmm. and then that would proclaim him, which that may be why she starts off asking about that, is because that was her plan, but because she figured that showing up with the horn, Ilion would go nuts. They would proclaim him the dragon, and he would have the backing of a strong nation behind him from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Except nothing links the horn and the dragon.
With
the horn is linked to the last battle
in the Golden Bees, not like the show.
Yes. Yeah, the companions especially. Anyway.
Well, and as you see throughout the books, it seems in the beginning, I mean, obviously other stuff happens, so I'm not spoiling anything here, but it just seems that in the beginning, Ilion seems to be pretty well in line with allyship with the tower. Mm. You know, they have no real beef. They don't give them trouble like Tyr does, or like Andor does, or so Ilion is like the southern borderland station. You know, they're maybe semi-neutral, but they don't hate on them like a lot of other nations.
Yeah, and presumably that's because Tyr does. Mm-hmm. So it's one more way to kind of
Stick it to them. Yeah.
stand apart from and stick it to your
Well, not only
your
that,
hated enemy.
with backing the supposed dragon, if it was to work out in the way the tower wanted, or Swan and Moraine wanted, they would see it as leverage to finally win that battle.
Because everyone knows, we won't go into those prophecies just yet, but then the first target presumably would be Tyr, which they would love. But I think that's why she's saying nothing is happening as I expect. And then her first question is about the horn. So I suspect that she's not trying to figure out where to go. She's trying to figure out where to direct Rand. She's still in boss mode, that I'm in charge mode. And I think she's here to try and direct Rand there. And then it just doesn't work out the way she thinks.
And the irony of all that is the reason it's not working out is because she's trying to direct him.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's in a way that he can figure it out.
Yeah. So then we get the clues about the Watchers over the waves to link the prophecies there, so that there is some kind of a link to Tome and Head.
Well, and there's specific things in that we'll see throughout the books, like the 5 ride forth and 4 return.
Yep.
Not going to say who it is, but I listed him as one of my favorite bit characters. And then it kind of tells you how it's going to end without telling you how it's going to end. Realistically, in these statements,
we get another reference to Taim. I can't remember how you're supposed to pronounce his name.
Taim. I think it
Mazrim.
had an Arabic sound to it.
And so we get another reference to him. So that hasn't gone away yet. That's another one of those. Keep that in mind because it's going to keep popping up. And then she does her shifting gears, even with someone she is friendly with and feels like she can trust. She's still being herself and shifting off balance. So to keep Vandene from going too far down this rabbit hole with questions she doesn't want to answer, she shifts to Shadar Logoth, try and throw her off balance.
Well, except that this part also is affected by the fact that they also stole the dagger.
Yes.
Separately. And she thinks that Fade stole the dagger.
Yes.
Even though earlier in this book, we know Fane has it.
Yeah. So we already know that. And that's something I didn't pick up on the first time. That it is kind of what you talked about the forest for the trees. Is this kind of showing a blind spot for Moraine, because she's the one who interrogated him. She's the one who found out that he was something more than just a typical dark friend. And they went through the trouble to rescue him when they stole the horn. So,
and her first question, or her Tome and Head question, was based on his writing.
Yeah.
So unless, well, she wouldn't have to lie here unless she purposefully said a Fade. Is there any reason a Fade would?
That's a good point.
To include dark friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because she never said a Fade stole the dagger. She said, would there be any reason why a Fade would take something?
Yeah.
And hoping that the answer would also give her an insight of why a dark friend would take something.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if she's starting, if then she's, rather than being a blind spot, if she's starting to suspect that Fane isn't really a dark friend anymore. He's something else. Because of that connection to Shadar Logoth. And that's what she's fishing for, maybe, is some sort of confirmation of that. Did she see the writings?
I know
Tome and Head?
No, that's how she got the clue.
No, well, that's where the Watchers part came from, but I'm pretty sure Rand scrubbed it off before anyone else saw it. Yeah, because Leandrin finds him while he's scrubbing it off. So he's the only one that saw Tolman Head.
Oh, well, then where'd she get? Okay, so I took that as where she got the idea. What page did I say that was?
92.
Was it in the Trolloc scroll?
Yeah, he drops the sword, he starts scrubbing it off, and then Leandrin comes in and gets weird. Where's Varen talking about it? Because she. Oh, here we go. So blood calls blood. So it's chapter 7. All right. So page 105 is when Varen relates all of the things that were written. Oh, here we go. All right. So page 106 is the Watchers.
Okay, so now we're getting Dark Prophecy.
Yeah. So so Tolman Head comes from the Dark Prophecy. The Watchers wait on Tolman's head. The seed of the hammer burns the ancient tree. Death shall sow and summer burn before the great Lord comes. Death shall reap and bodies fail before the great Lord comes. Again, the seed slays ancient wrong before the great Lord comes. Blah, blah, blah. Bad, bad, bad. All right. So that's where Tolman's head came from. It didn't come from Fane. So she doesn't know that Fane is headed there. She is searching for reasons why they would mention that. Yeah. So that's why she mentions this, because she's trying to figure out why they would write that and what links that there. Because I think she's still trying to guide Rand through the prophecies.
And now this is her first taste of the Dark Prophecies. So how she's trying to connect those things to what they know through their own. And this is where we get into that fate conversation again, because apparently at this point there is prophecy on both sides, and it depends on who becomes the victor in this age.
This makes me think. Yeah, right before the Drakkar finds her, she goes off into the garden, page 330. There was something in what Van Deen had said that tugged at her mind, but she could not remember what it was.
And I was looking for what that was.
An answer. Yeah. For a question that she had not asked. Oh, wait, no, because that was for a question that she had not asked. So she asked about Tolman Head. So what was it that she didn't ask that gave her the answer that sends her running off towards there?
I'm wanting to say it might be in the little the answer to have you received a summons from the Emerald seat, where she talks about with such power he will wield, we must overwhelm him before he has any chance to use it against us, before he can go mad and destroy the world. Yet first we must let him face the Dark One. But then she also goes on to say that she knows the seals are weakening. There's a call for the horn, false dragons coming out, Logain, Tame, can channel. How is it, how is this happening so frequently now? And she doesn't know about Rand, who Moraine knows can channel. I'm wanting to say it's in there somewhere, but I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, that is something that has always bugged me. I don't know that I've ever really figured out.
Unless it's a hint to a thing that will be a spoiler later about Adelaide and Van Deen. Which I also kind of wanted to, I only had time to kind of read it once and then look back through. but I kind of want to reread everything Van Deen says and see if she gives a hint
Well,
to, or it might be her talk about land.
see, I've always assumed that what she said was about Tolman Head, because since we're in spoiler territory and it's a minor thing, that's where she ends up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where she's going to end up. She goes charging off in that direction after she has this thought, but it it doesn't really line up with the you know, answer to a question she didn't ask, because she asked about Tolman Head.
We might be thinking in the wrong line though, because she also says, so her last statement is, "You blues always so ready to save the world that you lose yourselves."
Mm-hmm.
And what we do learn later is how important Moiraine discovering herself as a person is to everything as well. And that might be the foreshadowing there, but
Could be.
there's a couple directions this could take. Because
Yeah,
it also has something to do with what she was talking about Moiraine and land in the statement before that.
right. Because what Van Deen is saying is, uh, get you some of that sweet borderlander loving, because
Get you
maybe he
some
sees yours.
get you some loving period.
Yeah, because maybe he sees you as more than just an Aes Sedai now, and she dismisses it, and that's where Van Dien is there. That, oh, you blues are can't see the forest for the trees. So she's specifically talking about that, but was that what jogged? Uh, was that what jogged Maureen's mind? I don't know.
Well, since we gave the ultimate spoiler at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
I'll just go ahead and say that, it, I hate when they interject love story into every story. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Moiraine has a love story in this,
Yes.
and it is integral to how this plays out.
Yes.
So I might be holding that my most likely, because I think she was already feeling this way before it all kind of coalesced later. So it could be that, I don't know. It just, everything else was in direct response to her answers. Where was it that Van Dien became sharp again? She said she kind of like
Yeah,
snapped.
she's all professorial and going
Mhm.
on, and then she narrows her eyes and kind of looks at Moraine, and it's when she's talking about land fear. She paused, peering into her cup, and when she looked up, her eyes were sharp on Moraine's face. Land fear was linked to the dragon, to Luce Theron. Moraine, do you have a clue as to where the dragon will be reborn or was reborn? Has he come already? And that's when she has to kind of dismiss it.
Okay, and where
It's
were the dark prophecies again? Hold on,
um,
because there was a prophecy about
105.
105.
Yeah. Yeah, I still got my finger there because I'm flipping back and
The
forth.
daughter of the night, she walks again, the ancient war she yet fights, and her new lover she seeks, who shall serve her and die, yet serve still, who shall stand against her coming, the shining walls shall kneel, blood, okay, and then blood, blah, blah, blah.
Um, it could still be Tolman Head that that she was thinking about, because um the verse above the watchers shall he proclaim himself bannered across the sky in fire. Van Dien takes to mean, Elias tells me I'm quibbling, but I believe it means the dragon reborn will appear somewhere above Tolman Head in Arid Domain or Saldea. Adelaus may think I'm foolish, but I listen to every scrap I hear coming from Saldea these days. Mazrim Tame can channel, so I hear, and our sisters haven't managed to corner him yet. So she's saying that perhaps Mazrim Tame is the dragon reborn because he has
Mhm.
appeared above the Watchers. Um, but uh, I think Moraine linked what she said with the dark prophecy about Tolman Head to figure out that it's not it is at Tome and Head. The above
Mhm.
is maybe she doesn't know exactly how that's going to play out, but that may be what sends her running to Tome and Head rather than running to Arid Domain or
Mhm.
Saldea,
Well, it's
is
one
to
person,
Tome and Head
one
directly.
yeah, one person thinking backwards because they're seeing they're thinking of a prophecy and they're seeing what has already happened.
Yeah.
Whereas one person thinking forward because she already knows what happened at the Eye of the World,
Yeah.
so she knows he's the Dragon Reborn, but that thing hasn't happened yet for him. So she's trying to figure out how it's going to happen and how she can make it him help him live through it.
Mhm.
And but that still goes with the question she's asked.
Yeah. So I still don't, that's my best guess, but I still don't see I still don't think that's a strong answer to the what was the answer and what was the question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, an answer or a hint to an answer for a question that she had not asked. So I may have to go digging around looking up what other people think. If anyone is watching along who's actually read the series and has a thought on it, comment, because this is there are dozens of, you know, we've read the series through multiple times, and because of the complexity of the series, there are still a lot of I'm not exactly sure what this means.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've mentioned a couple as we've gone here of things that have popped up, and I've gone, I'm not entirely sure. I've never quite understood this, or never been fully satisfied with this answer to that, and this is one of those for sure that has always bugged me, to the point that, this isn't one of those, I'd forgotten about this or I didn't catch this the first time. No, this is one of those that perennially bugs me when I do a reread.
I'm still going to stick to my love story thing because that's
Mhm.
really the only thing Van Deen just kind of pokes her nose in without being asked. She just comes out and says it. Now she's
Could be.
completely wrong where the direction is,
Yeah.
but at the same time she kind of reads the room a little bit in that situation. So that I'm going to stick to that as my theory or my hypothesis. But where did you want to go from there? Because I can pivot to double talk because it's in this conversation.
No, that's about all I've got with this chapter, actually.
Okay, I wanted to because this chapter also highlights uh, the way Aes Sedai have to speak to each other because they
Mhm.
can't lie. And there's one passage, page 329, where Van Deen presses her that, do you know who the Dragon Reborn
Yeah.
is? And she says, would I be here instead of the White Tower? Question mark.
Yep.
Well, the answer is actually yes. But the Amaryllis seat knows as much as I do, I swear, which is true because
Hmm.
Swan knows that Rand channeled at the Eye of the World and he killed theoretically two Forsaken. And then she asks to throw the scent off, throw a red herring out. Have you received a summons from her?
Yeah.
Knowing she hasn't, because Swan is not as public as
Yeah.
she should be as the Emerald seat in this situation. So it's I think it's one of the most glaring examples of a lie without lying
Mhm.
in the books.
And even knowing that because you're one of those people too, and she still doesn't catch it because we all have our blind spots. And
Well, and the blind spot is she knows Moiraine can't lie.
yep,
And
uh, she knows Maureen can't lie. She knows that Maureen is friendly, if not a friend. So she's comfortable and relaxed. She's not necessarily analyzing every little thing that she says, like you see when Aes Sedai interact with each other later in the books, where when you start to get when an even Elaine, or especially Egwene, becomes a full sister, and you get chapters from her perspective where she's thinking through, she's analyzing every little thing they say because she doesn't trust them.
mhm.
She doesn't trust them fully, and so she's, even if she doesn't know exactly what their double speak is, she knows they're double speaking. Whereas here, the Dragon Reborn is such a big effing deal that I don't think Van Dien would ever think to analyze for double speak. Did you have anything more on this chapter?
No, we just got the Drakkar, which we learn
Yeah.
how awesome they are. Uh,
Yeah, that's a good point because we didn't actually see it do anything in the Eye of the World at the
no,
beginning
just
there.
screech and be a scout.
Yep,
But,
it's just some sort of flying Batman, bat creature thing.
and
Hey,
now we
Batman.
learn they're like kind of similar to what we would think of as like a traditional vampire.
Right.
Only they don't actually bite to suck the blood; they just suck your soul out.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah. So this is kind of a classic Nosferatu kind of creature,
mhm,
but with a twist because you know time is a circle, and so myth, legend,
mhm.
et cetera, and so forth. So this is Jordan's twist on that Nosferatu idea.
Which again, this is again, I think the failing of Jordan is again, if you don't get the compendium, you don't know Agenor invented these things.
Mm.
And you don't get the insight that he was just this mad freaking scientist trying to create as cool a badass bad things as he could.
Yes. And sometimes we will find out in a few books down the road that sometimes making things that scared the crap out of the shadow because they're so bad.
Yeah. So he dies so early in this process without any explanation of who he was that it throws you off. And again, you miss some of the big jokes later because you don't know that unless you have the white book.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. Well, do we want to do these White Tower chapters or we want to save those for later
How long
in
we've been
this
going?
in this spoilery one? It's 30, 45 minutes, I think.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's been about 45 minutes.
About 45 minutes. Uh,
Yeah, let's end that there so we can label this as spoilery and then move on with the not spoilers next time. Because
and next time we'll do like a little 5-minute recap of this chapter.
Yeah.
That's basically something to the extent of we see a lot of back and forth with the prophecies versus her questioning, and think of it however you will. And Aes Sedai double speak and badass Drakkar.
Yeah, because I thought that Nynaeve's testing was more spoilery, but I think that's Egwene's that I'm thinking of. Because when I reread it, I said,
yeah,
"Oh, there's not much going."
Egwene's
Yeah.
is the one that shows up a lot in the later books.
Yeah, that gets weird. Yep.
Now, what was I going to say? I was going to say something about the Drakkar. Oh, this is this chapter introduces us. They never mentioned the Black Ajah until now.
Do they not?
Unless the only other place I can think of is in the private conversation with Swan and Walrain, but
yeah.
But this is from Walrain's thoughts on it. I think this is the first time she even thought about saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, important concept for everything going forward, that this thing exists.
Yeah, which again, the tease foreshadowing in the prologue with Boars seeing the rings at the little dark friend get together.
All right, we'll end it there.
And we should be able to move along pretty quick with the next bit. Although there is some pretty meaty stuff that's going to happen. Because if we get all the way through Karheen, then that gets into the portal stone weirdness that has some interesting stuff happen.
Which is funny because we talked about how we're just going to fly through the Great Hunt, and now we're like, oh god, there's this super important part, and then there was this super important part. And all right, guys,
I still feel like we're moving a little faster, but we'll see what happens next time.
Yeah. All right. See you next time, guys.